Hey man, I'm Jusko from ProudMoney.com. In this video, we are going to look at the best gas credit cards, meaning the credit cards that give you the best rewards on your gas purchases. We're heading into the season here where those gas prices are likely to go up and people are starting to think about how they can get something back on those purchases. So we are going to start with a little top 10 countdown of the best 10 cards, and then I'll also give you a list of about a dozen more cards that you could do further research on that didn't make the top 10 for various reasons, which we will talk about as we go along. All right, let's start that countdown of the top 10. In the 10th position is the Navy Federal Credit Union More Rewards American Express card. No annual fee, 3% cash back on those gas station purchases. You'll also get 3% back on transit purchases, 3% back on restaurants and food delivery purchases, 3% back at supermarkets, and then 1% back on everything else. You have no foreign transaction fees on this card, so if you use it outside of the US, you're not going to get any extra charges. Oftentimes, credit cards are going to have a 3% fee on foreign transactions. Only downside potentially to this card is that you can only get it if you are a member of Navy Federal Credit Union, which not everyone is eligible to be a member. So if you're a current or former military or Department of Defense or a family member or somehow have a background with someone that is a member, those are the ways to get into Navy Federal if you can. A nice card. Number 9, PNC Cash Rewards Visa, no annual fee, 4% cash back on your gas purchases, 3% back on restaurants, 2% back at grocery stores, 1% on everything else. Note that there is an $8,000 yearly cap on those 4%, 3%, and 2% categories. So gas, groceries, restaurants. If you go beyond $8,000 in purchases in those categories combined, any further purchases would go down to 1%. This might be a little bit higher on the list if it was from maybe a different card issuer because PNC does have some geographic limitations, but overall, pretty nice card. Number 8, AAA Daily Advantage Visa. No annual fee. You do not have to be a AAA member to get this card. It's going to give you 3% cash back on your gas purchases and electric vehicle charging, 5% back at supermarkets, and then 3% back at wholesale clubs, 3% back on streaming services, 3% back on pharmacy, 3% at AAA, 1% everywhere else. No foreign transaction fees on this card. It's actually a little more of a supermarket card than a gas card, but a great combination overall. Number 7, Wells Fargo Autograph Visa, no annual fee, 3% cash back on your gas purchases. Also 3% in a bunch of other categories, 3% on dining, 3% on travel, 3% on streaming services, 3% on phone services, 3% on transit purchases, and then 1% everywhere else. So a really nice sort of Swiss Army knife of a card where you're going to get that enhanced 3% cash back on a whole bunch of stuff, including gas. Number 6, Blue Cash Everyday Card from American Express. No annual fee, 3% cash back on U.S. gas station purchases on up to $6,000 per year. In those purchases, if you went beyond $6,000 per year, you would go down to a 1% cash back rate on any further purchases. You also get 3% cash back at U.S. supermarkets on up to $6,000 per year in purchases. Again, this is a different cap. This is not combined with the gas, so you can go up to $6,000 there and still get that 3%. Same thing with the next category where you can also get 3% cash back, and that is on U.S. online retail merchant purchases, which is a category you don't see very often. So you can get 3% on your online purchases, again, and up to $6,000 per year in purchases. Everything else is going to get you 1%. A nice credit card from American Express, nice on gas, but really a nice overall combination. Number 5, the Sam's Club MasterCard is going to give you 5% cash back on your gas purchases on up to $6,000 worth of gas purchases per year. You're also going to get 3% cash back at restaurants, 1% back on everything else. Now, you do have to be a member of Sam's Club in order to get this card. If you have the basic membership that costs $50, you will get everything that I just said. If you have the Plus membership, which costs $110, you also would get 5% cash back on your Sam's Club purchases as well. So you do have to be a member, but if you are a member, a really nice gas card. Number 4 is the Costco Everyday Visa, sort of continuing the theme here with the membership stores. You're going to get 5% cash back on your Costco gas purchases with this card. You can get 4% back on any other gas purchases that you make elsewhere or electric vehicle charging. You get 3% back on dining, 3% back on travel, 2% back on Costco purchases, 1% back on everything else with this card. So a pretty nice combination, especially if you get your gas from Costco. Note that you get your cash back just once per year on this card. So it's one of those things where you go the whole year, they keep track of how much cash back you're getting, and then you get it all at once versus being able to redeem it whenever you want to. Number 3 is the Citi Custom Cash Card, and this is not strictly a gas credit card, but it is potentially so good as a gas credit card that I had to put it somewhere on this list, and here it is. This is how it works. No annual fee, you get 5% cash back in the purchasing category where you spend the most each billing cycle. There's a predetermined list of potential 5% categories. Gas is one of those. So if you took the card and you used it only for gas purchases each billing cycle, well then you could be assured of getting 5% back on all of those gas purchases. Any other purchases would only get you 1%. So it makes sense to use this card just for one particular category. There is a $500 cap on the 5% category each billing cycle, but for most people you're probably not going to spend more than $500 on those gas purchases, and even if you did, anything beyond $500 would still get you 1% cash back. So not strictly a gas credit card, but if you use it for gas, you're getting 5% back on everything. Number 2 is the US Bank Altitude Connect. No annual fee, 4% cash back on your gas purchases with this card on up to $1,000 of purchases in that category per calendar quarter. So for most people, you're probably not going to bump up against that. That would be about $80 a week on average that you would be spending on gas to get anywhere near that $1,000 cap. So assuming you do not hit that, 4% on all of your gas purchases. You're also going to get 4% on travel purchases, could get 5% if you book hotels or rental cars through the US Bank travel portal, and then 2% on grocery stores, 2% on dining purchases, 2% on streaming, 1% everywhere else. This card also has some other nice perks. It used to be a card that had an annual fee, and we thought they would take away all these perks when they got rid of the annual fee, but you still get a credit for TSA pre-check or global entry with this card. You get 4 trips to an airport lounge for free through the Priority Pass network with this card. It's got no foreign transaction fees, so good gas card, and a lot of other things going on here too. And then number 1 on this list, the AAA Travel Advantage Visa, not to be confused with the Daily Advantage Visa that we talked about earlier. So this is another really good card from AAA. Again, you do not have to be a member to get it. No annual fee. You're going to get 5% cash back on your gas purchases with this card, or 5% on electric vehicles, although you're probably not watching this video if you have an electric vehicle. You are also going to get 3% back on dining, 3% back on groceries, 3% back on travel, 3% back at AAA, 1% everywhere else, no foreign transaction fees. So for my money, this is the overall best gas credit card, and it's got a lot of other good things going on, which makes it a very good card overall, especially for a card with no annual fee. All right, so there are your top 10 cards. I think for most people, you can find a card or cards that are going to satisfy your need to maximize those gas rewards. But I'm going to give you another dozen cards here that didn't make the list for one reason or another, but they could be right for you depending on your credit card reward strategy, or if you fit a certain credit card profile. Maybe you're willing to pay an annual fee for a certain kind of card, all that kind of stuff. So looking at this list, I'll make a few notes here. You've got the Chase Freedom Flex and the Discover It card included. These are cards that have 5% cash back rotating categories. Sometimes they are gas, sometimes they are not. The USAA Cashback Rewards Plus card actually gives 5% back on gas and military-based purchases. It is a military-focused card. PenFed Platinum Rewards card also has a nice reward on gas but their points are sort of limited. Can't use them for cash back, and they've got sort of a weird redemption. US Bank Shopper Cash Rewards card is a nice credit card, decent on gas. You can get 6% back on purchases in other categories, but you do have an annual fee. And then down at the bottom there, you'll see the Hilton Surpass card and the Alaska Airlines Visa. Those cards aren't great on gas, but if you are interested in a travel card that maybe would get you a little bit more on those gas purchases toward your stays at Hilton or your flights on Alaska Air, you might look at those too. And all of these other cards on here have reasons that you might want them, so make sure to do a little more research if you are so inclined to see what is good about those and if they potentially could be better for you than what we've already talked about. Now, very, very rarely I make a mistake and leave a card out that should be in there. So if you know of a gas rewards card that I have not put on here, or you want to debate with me why one of the cards at the end should be in the top 10, all that kind of stuff, would love to hear about it in that comment section below.